Transfiguration. It gives us the opportunity to think about a church year in a big way, because if we pay attention, the church year has got rhythm to it. We go in this path year by year that tracks Jesus' life. We start in Advent as we lead into Christmas. After Christmas, we have Epiphany. Before Easter, we do Lent. After Lent, we do Pentecost, and then ordinary time back into Advent to begin it all over again. Now, I don't know how well everybody else tracks it, but it's this interesting thing, because before we begin Lent, every year, we do Transfiguration. It's part of that cycle. Pretty cool, two different things about that, because Transfiguration ends the season of Epiphany. Epiphany began when the wise men have followed the star that is pointed to Jesus. So light, right? Light pointing at Jesus. And it ends then here at Transfiguration when Jesus is the glory and the light. The other thing that is amazing about Transfiguration, it's as if though Jesus is taken up on the hill in order to be given whatever energy and fuel and encouragement he needs to come down off the mountain. There's the situation with the father whose son was unable to be healed by the disciples. Jesus comes right back down into life. And of course, from here on out, he will set his face towards Jerusalem, which will mean abandonment and denial. It will mean suffering and death. So this Transfiguration event is the refueling that he needs before he comes down. I'm wondering if it's the refueling that we need before we head into Lent and all that it means, all that we will listen for and spend time with, the heaviness of the cross that we are invited to carry as we move towards the Easter event. And then we even have this business of the Transfiguration. It is crazy what happens up on that mountain. David Lose calls it confounding. In all honesty, I think that the Transfiguration event asks more questions, begs more questions than it answers. Jesus has often gone away to pray. Has he had other visitors at other prayer times, but there were no disciples there to witness it? Why are only 3 of the disciples invited to go up on the mountain with him that day? Not only that, why is it Peter and James and John? And when Elijah and Moses show up, Elijah being the great Old Testament prophet, Moses to whom the law was given, why just the 2 of them? Why not others? And what do they talk about? And how long do they talk? Do they talk about what's about to happen? Is it a vision that lasts for days or minutes? And why, when it's all complete, to the disciples not talk about it? Why do they hold it in? How have I done? Are there other questions that still spin in your mind as you think about the Transfiguration? No, good. I've covered them all. This season, I'm going to invite us to sit with the Transfiguration a little bit differently. Instead of trying to figure it out, I'm going to encourage us to allow it to be an experience of and with God. To allow the Transfiguration to be an experience of love, to be an experience of wonder and mystery of God. Now, I know the scientists among us and the thinkers among us are going, ooh, that's much to ask. But for this season of Lent, might we change our perspective ever so slightly? What if we were to hold this Lenten season as an opportunity to bask in God's glory and listen for God's voice? Let's be honest. There are so many voices in our heads and in our lives. There are the voices that are wise and attractive and trustworthy, and there are a lot more voices that are harassing and vindictive and blaming and shaming. And unfortunately, those are some of the most seductive voices that we have to sit with. What might the voice of God actually sound like? And I think the hint is here, it's going to sound a lot like Jesus' voice, which was a voice of forgiveness and grace and mercy and love and calling and sending. And folks, if we were to spend a Lent intentionally sitting and listening and waiting for that voice, the voice of forgiveness and grace and mercy and love and calling and sending, how might we be transfigured? So, two different opportunities during Lent. There's going to be the Wednesday evening opportunity, by the way, that is this Wednesday, when we are going to invite members of our community in to share about the ministries that they are doing here in our community. The language is honoring our neighbor's faith in action. And so it's going to be an opportunity to listen to the different ministries here in town, why people are doing them and where they've seen the face of God in that. That's Wednesday nights. Sunday mornings throughout Lent, we are going to create a very small space to listen. And that could look like a lot of different things for a lot of different people. So you got some options. In just a minute, I'm going to have him pull some questions up. So there's going to be some questions if you want to sit with those questions. You've got a little space in your bulletin if you want to write down a journal, if that's how you want to listen for God in this space. We've got candles. We are going to do the unthinkable. We're going to have fire and candles at Immanuel. And a fire watcher, too. So if you would like to light a candle, you are welcome to do that. If you would like a time of prayer at the rail, if you would like to sit at the feet of the Master to listen, you are welcome to do that as well. So I'm going to warn you, you've got 2 minutes. It may feel like a very long time. It may feel like a very short time. You can let me know after church if it was too much or too little, and we'll work with that. But here are some questions for you to maybe consider. Where do you find yourself this Lenten season? Are you on a mountaintop? Or have you wandered into a dark valley? Are you somewhere in between, coming or going? In light of Transfiguration, has there ever been a time when God blew your socks off? What word does God have for you in this moment, on this day? And I even have a potential prayer for you to ask as we move into that time. We'll have 2 minutes. At the close of that, I will pray, and we will move on in worship. Good and gracious God, from the brilliant light of Epiphany to the long shadows of Lent, give us courage to listen without fleeing to the voice of the one who calls us beloved. Amen.
Where